Hi everybody, it's Tim Hagan, and today I will be the narrator of the broadcast. And on behalf of PowerTest, where we make things better and we make it better, we really appreciate your attendance today. And before we get going, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. In front of you, you will have two handouts in your tray. If you have any problems getting those, please let us know, but there's a couple PDFs there for your convenience. In addition, I just sent out a message saying hi to everybody, and that's in our Q&A panel, and that's typically where we'll take your questions and collaborate with you. And today's broadcast will be archived and recorded. There is a little bit of a transition when we do that. It does take some time. So do us a favor real quick. If you can make sure that you can hear us okay, you can see the screen, which is a picture of the PowerTest building, that would be great. That way we know our audio is working and that you can all hear us. If you have any questions, you can certainly put them in as well. But we're actually going to get started. And again, thanks for your attendance. I'd like to introduce Pat Kappa, the president of PowerTest.
Well, thanks, Tim. First of all, I just want to let everyone know that I'm thrilled to be part of this. These are fun things to do. It's a chance for us to communicate with our customers and even potential customers, perhaps, and help share some of our knowledge about our products and why they might be a benefit to you. So, and also just educate you on this type of product as a whole and help, so you better understand your opportunities as you're trying to manage your business. I came to PowerTest from a long career at Harley-Davidson, actually, so I have a good familiarity working with dealer networks and repair facilities. I came to PowerTest 2.5 years ago as the president, running this company for our owner, Al Pedalinsek, and it's been a great experience for me coming to a very large corporation to a smaller privately held group. I've had a chance to get out in our customers numerous times, and I've spent a number of trips visiting truck repair centers in particular, and I have a pretty good feel for what's going on out there. But we have other experts here as well joining us. In fact, one person with much more experience than me, and that's Wayne Moeller.
Hi there, Wayne Moeller. I've been with PowerTest for 19 years now. I've been in the industry since 1988. From doing technical support, repairs, sales, etc. But I cover the western half of the U.S. and Canada for PowerTest out of a regional office in Chipeta Park, Colorado, just outside of Colorado Springs.
Awesome. Well, Wayne, thank you very much, and it's great to have Wayne on our team. He has years and years of experience, and he's helped educate me on sort of the benefits of chassis dynos, along with the customers that I've spoken with directly. At PowerTest, we say our purpose at PowerTest is to make it better, and we do that for 3 distinct groups. We make it better for our customers, we make it better for our employees, and we really try hard to make it better for our community as a whole. Those of you that might even tune into I do monthly videos where I talk about how we've made it better in the past 30 days. If you ever want to check that out, you can go to our website, which is at the bottom of the screen there, powertestdyno.com. Today we're going to really focus on how we try and make it better for our customers. And one of the ways we do that is with a chassis dyno. So if we look ahead to the next slide, looking at what are we talking about here today? Well, we really try and pride ourselves on making your testing easy. That's our really strong focus here as a company. And by helping educate you on chassis dynos and how they work and how they can benefit your business, the purpose for today's webinar is to help educate you so you can make a more informed decision of whether this might be right for your business or not.
And today, everybody, what we're going to do is when we talk about, what is a chassis dyno, we're going to talk about variance in the products and why does somebody need a chassis dyno. And so as we go through today's presentation, we want you to ask questions. A lot of you sent some messages in via the Q&A, and our objective today is to not only educate, certainly to make you aware of some of the PowerTest abilities and capabilities, but certainly to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to do that as we go forward in the presentation. Now, what I'd like to do is turn this over to Pat and start off with, what is a chassis dyno?
Okay, well, most of you are probably familiar with what a chassis dyno is. Sometimes they're referred to as roller dynos. That might be a more obvious descriptive name because they do use roll sets. Chassis dyno really measures the power that's delivered to the surface of that driver roller from the drive wheels. So you're testing the entire powertrain, the engine and the transmission as one other unit inside the vehicle. Vehicles, generally trucks and buses in most of our customers' cases, are positioned on the rollers, and then that you can drive the vehicle on the rollers with the vehicle secured in place. And the whole idea behind a chassis dyno really is that it delivers, or it provides a load or resistance against those drive wheels and tires on the vehicle. The big advantage is that it allows you to simulate driving a truck on the road, including with a simulating a loaded trailer, or more importantly, simulated varying elevation changes and angles in the road. So if you're located in the middle of Indiana, for example, with not a ton of elevation changes, but your customers happen to routinely drive through the mountains, this allows you to simulate a mountain grade while you're testing the work you've done in your shop. The other thing that comes with a chassis dyno is a data acquisition and control package. That's a very important part of this. Wayne will talk about more of the benefits of this later. Actually, I will as well. But the data acquisition and control allows you to run a test that's predictable, repeatable, done the right way each time, efficiently, and also, most importantly, gives you professionally printed reports that show the quality of your work and proves to your customer that the job was done right. So now, as far as kind of what are the main components, or what's the differences, or what do you think about the different types of chassis dynos? I'm going to turn it over to Wayne to talk about the different types of chassis dynos or components of a chassis dyno that are available.
Okay, so the primary first thing is where the vehicle tires contact the chassis dynamometer, how we transfer that energy. The yellow rolls on this system are where the tires will sit. Those are coupled to shafts, which then provide the resistance either brakes or air-cooled eddy current absorbers. These can accommodate a variety of axle spacings for different vehicles without anything moving on the roll set. The water brake absorbers are a very mature technology, and there is some additional infrastructure required to support those. The newer air-cooled eddy current absorbers that we, in this product shown, just use electricity, and it reduces the cost of installation and maintenance and repair and operational cost over the long term. All of our systems can handle up to 30,000 pounds of vehicle weight per axle. So you can actually test a loaded dump truck.
I think one thing too to point out, Wayne, is that you can a chassis dyno can actually absorb the load only, which most of ours do. We also have a patented design that actually motors as well and can drive the tires on the vehicle as well.
Correct, and we'll see a little bit of that information in following slides. Tim, will you go to the next slide? So on our air-cooled eddy current absorbers, there are 20-inch diameter rolls that have siping that enhance the cooling and traction of the tires on the rolls to reduce tire slip. So there's less correction factor required to get the direct energy or horsepower that it's making into the ground. These have structural steel frames that we actually warranty for the lifetime of the product, unlike our competitors. They can handle 30,000 pounds of vehicle weight per axle. The rolls also come with a lifetime warranty from PowerTest. The eddy current absorbers.
Sorry about that, Wayne. Go ahead.
The air-cooled absorbers, there are actually 4 of them, and they've been in use in garbage trucks as brake augmenters since the 1940s, so it is a proven technology, water-free, so there is no liabilities or issues related to contamination going down drains, EPA considerations, etc. And it's lower initial cost and lower long-term maintenance and repair costs compared to water brakes, their valves, pumps, evaporator towers, etc.
Wayne, could I also add that that dyno, the chassis dyno pit, generally doesn't have to deal with the water seepage you have from a in a water brake system, so that generally the pit stays a little more.
It stays much drier. Yeah, there's no leaking water past packing seals that is required in a water brake to lubricate those seals. The only water or fluids that might make it down into this pit would be snow or rain coming off vehicles that they're bringing in for testing, and then the possibility of grease, lube oil, transmission fluid antifreeze, et cetera, that might come off a vehicle during testing. So much less concerns or issues related to that.
Okay, thanks.
And Wayne, we have a question from Junior. How much AC power is required to power the entire system? He states he seems like it would require a lot of power. What are your thoughts?
The AC power required for the chassis dyno is a 40 amp circuit of 230 volt single phase power. And that is when you're at absolute maximum capacity. So compared to having 3-phase multiple water supply pumps, it does do a very good job in reducing your utility cost. It all depends on how much power you're absorbing, and that's how strong of a magnetic field you have to create to excite the magnetic field in the absorbers to create the load. But
I think that was one of them. Oh, sorry.
But that is significantly less than water break, so there is some definite long-term savings there.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest surprises I had coming to the company when you look at these eddy current dynos, which really use electricity to create the resistance as compared to a water break, which we also offer. But the water break, then you have pumps involved, and the pumps generally use much more electricity than this. The electricity used here is really just for the excitation to create that magnetic fields, and the magnetic fields and the iron rotors moving, trying to break those magnetic fields. That's what causes the resistance, and it was surprising how little electricity it actually takes to create those fields. It's very, very efficient.
And all the energy absorbed is converted into heat from the absorbers. That heat is dissipated into the room. If it is an indoor application, you would still have a 40,000 CFM fan, just like you would with a water break dyno, removing the vehicle exhaust, provide cooling for the air-to-air aftercooler radiator, but then it's also drawing this heat away from the absorbers and out through the ceiling.
Okay.
In outdoor applications, there is no hood required, and we have multiple people have got new systems going in right now that are outdoors in climates that are not freezing applications.
Okay, why don't we save some of those comparisons until we look at why choose of one type over another, and let's run through the other two chassis dyno types we have.
Okay, so the older water break technology, this is a 40-inch diameter system where the air-cooled eddy is a 20-inch diameter. This has 2 water break absorbers, 1 per axle. This can actually accommodate from 48 to 76-inch axle spreads. We used to see some long spread Canadian logging trucks. Those have mostly transitioned to tri-drives, which we do offer systems for as well, which is 3 drive axles. Same 30,000 pound capacity vehicle weight per axle. This does have up to 550 horsepower capacity per roll down to 20 miles per hour. So it does have greater low speed test capabilities than the air-cooled eddy. Just some inherent characteristic differences between the system. The larger diameter rolls do provide a longer, flatter contact patch, so if you're doing testing R&D stuff that might last hours and hours, it is better for the tires with a large roll. But for the common dealer where you're doing a horsepower curve test or a stage break-in for a period of 20 to 30 minutes, the air-cooled eddy meets that requirement and is a significantly lower equipment cost and installation cost and operating cost.
Good insights. Thanks, Wayne.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the prior 2 systems just provided loading resistance to the tires turning. This is a motorized chassis dyno, so in addition to creating resistance to measure horsepower, it can actually provide motoring capabilities to test parasitic losses. You shift a vehicle into neutral, and this can spin the rolls up and test the parasitic losses right and left individually. This is primarily used in the transit industry for buses where they need to do projections on periodic maintenance per vehicle to avoid having a bus breakdown during its route.
I think also, Wayne, in the go ahead. Sorry. In the growing applications of hybrid vehicles, there's an application for motorized dynos also, because you can actually drive those each axle independently and determine what kind of resistance and load, and also determine how the hybrid regen system is working on that vehicle too.
Correct. Thank you, Pat. This can also be used to test braking bias right and left on transit buses. So which system is best for you? It depends on your unique applications and your requirements, and we look forward to discussing personally with anyone what their needs might be and the best long-term product for your application.
And before we go forward, we have another question. Can you test brakes on the motorized chassis or the motorized chassis dyno? Can you test brakes?
You can test brake biasing. It cannot, commonly those are like 75 horsepower motors driving the right and left axle wheel positions. It's not like a bare brake tester where you're running at half mile per hour and checking the peak torque of the brake application. So it does not replace that different product line, but it does provide some basic testing, projecting, looking for maintenance needs down the road.
Wayne, would it be safe to say, could our custom engineered solutions group, if someone wanted a solution designed for that purpose, would that be a reasonable way to go, or are they better off with some other product?
We would definitely welcome looking at that with custom engineered solutions. To this point, we have not had that request specifically through Rob and his group.
So one just piece of information on this, Tim, is that we do have a custom engineered solutions division that does design test equipment for any specific need, and I have yet to see a challenge they can't tackle. So, you know, if anyone ever has a need that isn't fit directly by these standard products, we do have the ability to custom design. Thanks.
We've actually done chassis dynos for skid steer applications as well. So if you have a need, we can design something to meet that need.
Absolutely.
Great. So why do I need a chassis dyno? As we're going to transition the presentation, we want our audience to start thinking a little bit more about how this can transform your business, not just the technical parameters, but more thinking about what this would mean to have something like this in your shop. And we want you to think about those things in those terms as we go forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. I'll take us through this section, and really the mindset that I've learned from Wayne and from service managers and service directors that I've spoken with at truck repair facilities is we've found it's really helpful to identify what our customers' pain points are in running the service department. And generally, the way you'll see the next several slides as we go through is all the things you have to deal with in a service facility that have to do with primarily testing and also quality. And so we'll take you through each one at a time here and talk through how a chassis dyno might be right or why it might be right for your facility. First of all, if you're doing road tests today, I'm sure many of you will agree that it is a bit of a pain point because you're sending guys out on the road. You've got to have insurance. They need to have a license to drive a commercial vehicle. They can get stuck in traffic. They're not working on other trucks. Instead, they're driving a truck. You'd rather have them working on a new vehicle and identifying new problems and selling more parts. You also know that you're out there with two people oftentimes, one driver and one guy taking data and troubleshooting. So you basically, if you move away from taking that truck out on the road for your quality verification test and instead have it tested in the facility, depending on your practices now, you generally save a significant amount of time and headache and risk of accidents and driver and technicians being out driving around instead of being there working on more products and generating more revenue for you. So that's one good reason, is that you're saving technician time, that lost time without road testing, and you're actually having them in there doing their real job, which is working on trucks. Okay, so next point is that it eliminates multiple staff, which we just talked about a little bit, which is the fact that if you move ahead here, we've got the fact that technicians can now work those billable hours in the shop. You're not wasting time, and you don't have that second guy riding along. And with no one being on the road, it's better, safer, and more efficient. So we said enough about that really in those first two slides. Let's move on. One thing we really think is important we found is this whole idea of your customers are wondering, okay, how do I know that this job was done right? And there's certainly a customer satisfaction aspect to this, that if it's not fixed right the first time, that means they got to come back, and everyone is busy, and no one likes taking a vehicle back for a second repair. We've commonly refer to those as comebacks. But so one way you can ensure yourself that it's been fixed right the first time, and you can show your customer that, is that with our PowerNet data acquisition and control system, which controls the test, makes it very repeatable and accurate. We can also provide highly professional, customized reports that include your business's name and logo that you can provide to your customer, and it does a couple things for you. First of all, it shows them the quality of the repair has been verified by a piece of high-tech, current technology piece of equipment. It also gives you peace of mind that it's been fixed right the first time, and you're not going to see this customer back in an unhappy state of mind. So we find this to be very, very valuable, showing your customers proof that it's been fixed right in all sorts of conditions, including simulating driving up a mountain, perhaps. Okay, let's look at the next. This comeback issue I talked about, let's look at that in a little more detail. Every service manager knows that comebacks are bad, right? They come back, that you've got your technician working on a vehicle that they should have got right the first time, but for whatever reason didn't, and now they've got to put more hours into that repair. And worst of all, there's two things there. They were supposed to be working on a new job. Instead, they're busy reworking the angry customer's vehicle that got brought back in. And on top of that, so it disrupts your schedule. But on top of that, you can't bill the customer for that time. It's just lost time. You're eating it because it was supposed to be fixed already. So you're doing that work for free, essentially. And so really, we find that to be a big frustration for people. And then not alone the immediate cost, but the idea that customers that it doesn't get fixed right the first time, they may not say it, they may not tell you, but if it happens enough, they're going to take their repair business elsewhere. So you have that major risk of losing customers if it doesn't get fixed right the first time. Okay, now there's all sorts of opportunities through a chassis dyno for incremental shop revenue or income, which you may or may not be familiar with. So we'll just cover some of those points right now. There's one that is, you probably are aware, but if you are using a chassis dyno, to diagnose and troubleshoot your vehicles, really the nice thing here is that you can find additional performance issues that you wouldn't have found just taken out for a test drive. When you put it under varying load conditions and scenarios, your technicians can actually find more things that are wrong with a vehicle, with a truck, and that leads to more parts being sold and more billable hours. And we do see anywhere from 20 to, believe it or not, 50% increase in the amount of work that is performed on a truck if you use a chassis dyno to diagnose that vehicle. Another way you can get incremental shop time is if you had your drivers taking that vehicle out, and by the time they took it out, and maybe you even have a loaded trailer that you've got parked out back, and they hook up a trailer and they drag it around town and they get stuck in all the traffic, that might be an hour or more of time that they put into that test drive, perhaps. And also you've got two people oftentimes in that truck. If you use a chassis dyno, we found that when you get good at it, those chassis dyno test runs can take a total of much less than 1 hour, sometimes as short as a half hour to get the whole thing done. That means that that technician that was out test driving can now be working on more vehicles and identifying more parts to be sold and billing more labor hours, which brings you more revenue. The other thing that I want to make really clear to everyone is that this is probably one of my favorite points of a chassis dyno, is that because of the impact that it has and the value that it has in the customer's mind as well, if you educate them as to, by using this modern technology and test device, we are sure we fixed your truck correctly. The market has shown that you can charge for those dyno testing services. And Wayne will touch on this later, but the market price in the United States is between $300 to $500 per dyno test run, or dyno testing services. So that does add up, as we'll show later in our payback calculator tool. This ability to charge for that quality verification test is a huge benefit that you may not have thought of, and we'll show you that impact later. Then last but not least, there's some additional business benefits that come with a chassis dyno. I already mentioned that it proves to your customers that you've got dedication to quality. You've got the ability to efficiently identify and resolve their issues. The other things you might not think of, though, is that you have if you are a sales dealership also where you're selling vehicles and you're taking in used trucks on trade, sometimes it's a little bit of a dicey proposition to come up with a proper trade-in allowance if you're not 100% certain of the mechanical quality of that truck. Well, a lot of places use their chassis dyno as a way to put a trade-in on the dyno, run it through diagnostics, and make sure that everything's A-OK. That can help you be more confident in the trade allowance you're giving someone when they bring their truck in. So that makes you more confident when you're selling it, which means you can actually talk about that being a value when you're selling the truck, saying that it's been used, it's been tested on a chassis dyno. You have a quality report that shows the quality of that vehicle's drivetrain, and that adds to the price you can ask for that used vehicle as well. Another thing you may not have thought of is that you can actually sometimes sell your chassis dyno testing services to outside organizations in your area that repair trucks. Maybe there's independent shops. We know they're everywhere or in every market. They may have a truck that they will need to test on a chassis dyno, and they come to you for that repair, and they have to pay you the market price for using your chassis dyno. Lastly but not least, I would like to say that this really does offer you opportunities to advertise that you're a sophisticated and competent repair facility. The example we're showing really is just one sample of a banner ad that Truck Repair Center puts up in their service write-up area, showing that they test their work with a chassis dyno. Here's a particular pricing special. But again, promoting the idea that you verify your quality of work with a chassis dyno is a way to differentiate yourselves from the competition. We do provide these types of ad slicks to you if you'd like. We can give you the graphic materials so you can produce these banners for your service facility. We also provide some ad slicks to you that you can use digitally and add to your website, which helps differentiate you from the competition when someone's searching for a local repair facility for their truck.
Awesome, Pat. Thanks. Before we move on, we've got a couple questions that hopefully you and Wayne can answer. And the first one is, hopefully you're not going to butcher your question, Dean, but why can't I change the default setting from, I think, valve to HP? I'm not sure what that question is alluding to, so can either you or Wayne address that?
Dean is an existing customer that has one of our systems, and the default position is valve percent or percent of load. If we had it set in horsepower, it theoretically could start applying power to begin with. The systems have automated test patterns as a feature, so you can click on the pattern you want to run, load that, and then run it, where it will automatically go through. Let's say you're at high idle, direct drive. It can load it down sequentially down to peak torque, pausing, stabilizing, recording at each lug point that has been defined in the pattern. The concern about why does it default to valve percent versus horsepower, commonly you're not controlling to horsepower other than in a warm-up phase. And if you're doing that, commonly you would ideally be running the automated test patterns. When you're running in manual mode, either controlling to horsepower, RPM, mile per hour, etc. That's where you're trying to troubleshoot one specific problem at one range of speeds rather than the overall performance curve or range of the engine.
Awesome, thanks.
Safety default.
Another question we have from Junior: can I troubleshoot with CAT, ET, and other software when I am testing on the chassis dyno under load?
Absolutely. You can. The ECM interfaces that we provide, there's a Y cable, so in addition to being plugged directly into the vehicle port, you can then plug CAT ET or CAT ET, the DDEC software or Cummins Insight directly into this Y connector, so you can have a laptop running the proprietary OEM software simultaneously while on the chassis dyno. Absolutely.
Awesome. And everybody, please put in your questions. And Dean and Junior, thank you for sending in your questions. And if you have more questions, we are monitoring the Q&A chat. We are happy to answer any questions that you have. So thanks for your answers, Wayne. Now, as we go forward, how do you know if a chassis dyno makes business sense? And what we're about to transition into is more of some of the conversations that surround more cost and calculating cost and an ROI investment. And we're going to actually show you a live tool that's used at PowerTest to service its customers as well as its prospective customers to really validate the investment in a dyno. So as we go forward, I'm going to log out of the PowerPoint, for a lack of better description, and I'm going to bring us over to our calculator. And just bear with me here. And I'm going to bring it all the way up to the top, and then when you're ready to transition forward, Wayne, as you go forward, just feel free to nudge me along, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay. In years past, we had a tool similar to this that was one sheet of paper, not editable, etc. But as we've improved our capabilities to support our customers, Pat was a key man in getting this tool created. So this is available for chassis dynamometers, our transmission dynamometer, and our engine dynamometer test systems. Each has different ranges of considerations in what the payback would be and what your long-term gross revenue and net profit could be. So in the first two blue boxes, we're defining what the equipment is you'd be purchasing and an approximate price for that equipment plus the options, exhaust hoods, opacity meters, volumetric blow-by meters, etc. that one customer might purchase. And then in the yellow box below that, where it shows $40,000, that would be editable in defining what that cost would be to install our equipment into an existing bay. Obviously, if you're putting up a new building or expanding and putting in a separate bay just for the dyno, those costs would rise.
And by the way, Wayne, can I just point out to the customers or folks online, this is an actual customer's scenario that we've taken through, but we've changed the names to protect the innocent, and you can see that the customer name here is Wayne's Trusty Truck Repair in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm not sure if you noticed that, Wayne, that this is in honor of you.
I don't know if it's in honor of me or not.
Okay.
When we would work with a customer on this tool, we would start an interview process, and all the yellow boxes that you'll see down through this multi-page sheet are things that are editable. So what would a customer's billable shop rate be? What's the overhead labor cost for a technician per hour? What your electric cost is, your service days per week, number of shifts, etc. So page down, if you would, Tim. And we go through and interview you, asking you, what's your current number of ROs or work orders, repairs that you do per month, average time, average parts, sales, etc., to get a baseline picture of where your business is today. On your current testing methods on the right side, what percent are you actually road testing before, during, or after a repair? The number of road tests per repair. Again, things to get a baseline of what your costs are today. And down at the bottom of the screen, you can see where we're calculating, after doing all these edits, what your incremental monthly profit would be, what the payback would be in months or payback in years on investing in the chassis dyno. What your average cost is. For example, Tim, cost for a dyno feed right now in row 25 says $300. Let's change that to $400 just to see what impact that has. And a lot of it is, what will your market bear? So that incremental monthly profit went from $11,000 to $17,000 on the dynamometer.
Without changing anything, without changing anything yet, Tim, can you go back to 300 for a second on that? And then do us a favor and just scroll down one line to show the annual profit, incremental profit this represents. Scroll down just a little bit on the display, please. Okay, so that looks like an annual increase of 100. Oh, no, don't go that far.
So we were going one line, page up.
Keep going up. A little back to here. Just stay there for a second, Tim, if you could. You can see that annual. that annual profit is $139,000 in this particular scenario that we've run with this customer. Now, if that customer could find a way to convince their customers that $400 is a very fair price for the value they get from this, and again, we said the average price in the U.S. is between $300 and $500 for one of these tests. If you plug in, remember, it's $139,000 profit annually for investing in this equipment. If you would change that $300 to $400 now, Tim, showing that you get the average price, that $139,000 of profit changes to $212,000. So the only point of making that change is to show everyone that's listening in that your business practices and how you leverage this tool and your selling skills, et cetera, really can drive some significant, legitimate profitability for your organization that I'm sure you'd be happy about, and I'm sure the ownership group or the board of directors would be happy about as well.
Now change that 20% in row 26 from 25 or from 20 to 25% of tests of vehicles you're repairing that you're also testing. That 200 and someone to 300, and the payback dropped down to just over 6 months.
So Wayne, why don't we? Oh, sorry about that. Why don't we run down quickly through the kind of the revenue section of this tool, just to show people that it's got things that we've considered many things in this tool. Not dwelling too long on anything, but on the revenue section and then the expense section, explain the concept, and then how we work on people one-on-one afterward.
So we had the baseline at the very top. What was your level of testing? What was the cost, et cetera? Here we're asking, what do you think the additional dyno evaluations you might do per month? Go ahead and scroll down again, or page down. Just hit the page down once. Page up twice. This is our first webinar. Page up one more time. Get up into the revenue section with the green bar on the left. Okay. So there, in addition to, how many incrementals do you have? What percent of tests do you have incremental repair work identified, problems found on the dynamometer that go back into the shop for additional work, additional labor, additional part sales, and additional customer satisfaction from preventing them having a breakdown somewhere down the road. They're able to now proactively get it repaired when they are able to, rather than having a hook come and pick them up somewhere. Hit page down once.
I'd like to make sure that we're letting everyone know, Wayne, that, and let's just cover a couple of highlights from this tool. But the point here is that most of the stuff that actually everything that we just talked about in the presentation of the business effects of a chassis dyno and how it impacts your business, they have been taken into account in this payback calculation tool. So that's where these numbers come from. All those concepts that I just discussed with you are accounted for with a numerical and financial way here to show you how it really pays back. So maybe we just cover the expense section briefly, and then we can open it up to more questions.
Page down, Tim. So we take into consideration the kilowatt per hours. What do you think the average dyno test duration be of the actual test? Not the load mounting and dismounting, but the actual test time. Commonly it can be as small as 8 to 10 minutes, the actual test, and then you've got the mounting, dismounting. Other than crankcase pressure or blow-by, commonly you have that one ECM connector, so it's much faster than old style dynos where you had to physically connect individual sensors to different parts of the engine for knowing what its performance was. Go and scroll down again. Keep scrolling down. So again, here's that monthly incremental profit per month. Think of that after the dyno's paid off in 7 months to a year. That's additional revenue for the company, the organization, that will last for years. So
not just revenue,
definite profit center.
Right. This is actual profit. This is the revenue minus expenses. That's the profit and this is for the particular scenario with the particular conditions that we've loaded in. I think the best thing to close with on this tool is just to let people know that this is a tool that's available. It's at the dispense of our sales account representatives here at PowerTest, and if anyone would like to have them take a kick at the can and run through that with you, I know our guys are more than happy to spend that time with you to help make an educated decision if it's something that might make financial sense for your business or not.
Now, as we go forward, does anybody have any questions? We've had a lot of questions up to this point. Does anyone have any questions as it relates to the payback calculator and some of the things that we've actually talked about up to this point? And feel free to ask any questions up to this point, even from a technical nature as well. And Wayne, as we're waiting for some questions, how are some customers in the field actually using the payback calculator? What's been some of the impressions in the marketplace?
A lot of it's been not grasping the different ways that they can gain revenue, or even identifying that additional work in the shop and additional part sales that's never credited to the quote dynamometer, helping them identify and realize those revenues. So this is a tool to help managers as well as upper management grasp the overall effect to the business through this tool, rather than just what the direct invoiced labor is on the dyno. There's, go ahead.
Pat, what are your thoughts?
I would echo what Wayne has said. I think for a lot of people, what we've seen is a lot of people will look at it and go, yeah, I know it's a good idea. But it almost seems like it gets put on the I'll do it someday list, you know, as you talk about it. And yeah, I'm busy, and we're getting by with what we do, and it works pretty good. And yes, it's a good idea, but I got other priorities. And then you actually just take the time to just take 15 minutes to talk through what's your particular scenario and put in what you think might be realistic. We don't enter any of this data. Our customers enter their own data. We just ask the questions. And when it spits out the opportunity at the end, it opens a lot of eyes to say, maybe I shouldn't treat this as a maybe someday, but this will make our business a lot more profitable, help me run a better business, provide better customer service, higher quality work. Like all the light bulbs start going on when they start to realize, you know what, this thing pays back incredibly well. And they're amazed by it, and often it gets their upper management engaged to think, okay, maybe it is okay to spend this money because we're going to make it back in a very short amount of time. The whole charging for tests and the reality that is a real number. This is not a make-believe consultant thing saying if you do these 25 things you'll make $100,000. This is if you put this in place and start convincing your customers that they can pay for, will pay for the testing, you will make that money. It is not make-believe. So I like to joke with some service managers that this thing basically prints money, and it also makes your customers happier because their stuff gets fixed right the first time. Your technicians are more efficient because they're not doing rework. They're not out on the road driving trucks. It's just a lot of eyes start opening and get really excited about how they can make their department run better. And let's be honest, oftentimes it can make someone look pretty good with the ownership group too by being a smart manager and recommending something that's good for the business.
Cool. Well, we've got a couple more questions from our listeners. Can the EC be installed above ground versus in a pit to save on installation expenses?
We do offer an above grade ramp installation kit. Truthfully, it's more expensive than digging a pit and putting it in the ground. The place that has been considered is where they're in a leased facility where they want to take the dyno with them. They don't want to have it built in. The trade-offs are, think of the aerodynamic packages on a Class 8 truck these days. You have to have a really long ramp with a gradual grade to get up to the flat portion where the vehicle will be. So it does take up a lot more space, and it's costly.
I was thinking that concern, Wayne has tons of experience, real-world experience, which I really value. And it sounds like it's an obvious thing. Yeah, just put a ramp on it and you can drive up onto it, and you can. And we offer that to people. But the reality of that is, ramps made of some pretty high-quality steel and has strength, and so it's just steel, but it still costs money. You still got to mount it, and cutting concrete and creating a pit, especially when there's no water systems involved. It's just basically making a pit, and you have to have enough electricity to provide what Wayne talked about earlier, which is basically just your normal electricity service. Creating a pit actually isn't as daunting as it sounds, and it makes it a more compact place. It also makes it easier. You're not having you guys back a truck up on a ramp. You're just backing it straight up onto the roll sets, or driving it onto the roll sets, even.
And the operators are not climbing up and down another 20 inches, climbing up from the ground onto the ramp, then up to the steps into the vehicle. If you're trying to locate this indoors, then you've got 2 additional feet approximately, but the vehicle will be higher up in the air. Are your doors tall enough?
Yep. So I mean, the answer is yes, it can be done.
Cascading.
Yes, it can be done, but it's maybe, you have to really think about, is it the best way when you consider all expenses. Wayne, what would you think is a reasonable installation expense in the United States if you're going to use an existing bay, you had to cut the concrete and create the pit, and maybe even add an exhaust to it, because a lot of places would have to do that. What do you think is a reasonable construction expense or installation expense, ballpark?
Looking at putting the concrete work in, putting the 23-inch deep pit in, and mounting the electronics on the wall and getting the AC power to that, I would expect $10,000 to $18,000 for that stuff. The hood, you have to have additional 3-phase power for that, ideally 460. Then you've got the roofing cost is your trusses or roof structure capable of carrying the 15,000 pounds between the fan on the roof, and if you choose to put a hood body to help more directly control the exhaust from the room, that could be another 10,000 plus, just because the elevation and different technology or different tradesmen that have to do that stuff. That's
so you think as you're looking at
of the equipment.
Okay, so maybe $20,000 to $30,000 in installation cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
now,
we actually have a couple.
I was going to ask
we
one
have a
question related to that. Okay,
Sure.
sorry, Tim. Just one follow-up question that people might be wondering. I've been in truck repair facilities where they have a centralized duct running through the repair facility with sucker hoses that they hook up to all the individual trucks that are being worked on. Is that something that's an option if you have an existing system, Wayne, that you could use that rather than installing in a separate hood for your chassis dyno bay?
No, that's not smart to do for reasons. That is for the exhaust coming from a truck idling, not at pedal to the floor, full throttle, full load with 12 to 1300 degree temperatures. If you use that type of ventilation ducting, those aren't rated for those temperatures. They're not rated for that volume. It's not helping remove the engine heat, the charge air cooler heat, or the air-to-air aftercooler heat, or the dyno air-cooled eddies that's rejecting heat to the room again.
Got it. So the exhaust hood's usually the preferred solution, sounds like.
Yeah. So we've got some customers that haven't put the hood in, just put a 40,000 CFM fan in their ceiling. That is by far better than trying to just duct out the engine exhaust. So you've got all those other heat-related issues in the room.
Got it. Thank you.
Tim, you have
We actually have
question?
a couple questions. Yeah, we have a couple questions about installation, which are pretty interesting. I'll kind of group them together for you. Can our chassis be installed in an existing pit by another competitor, or can the customer actually install them themselves?
We do have customers that do install our chassis dynos into either existing pits or design pits for around the Power Test chassis dyno. We actually design the air-cooled eddy systems, so in a modified configuration, they do fit into existing pits from our competitors. I've got 2 on order right now, I think, that are going to distributorships that are replacing 20 or 30-year-old competitors' dynos. No pit modifications are required. We can actually do custom cover plates, so if their pit is slightly irregular from that design, that our cover plates can fit over and rest on the edges of pits that are larger than our design. So yes, we can absolutely retrofit into existing pits, plugging off the water supply piping, etc. And we've done that for multiple designs and for multiple customers over the last 5-6 years. This product has been out there for about 10 years now, the air-cooled Eddy, and it's now 90% of our chassis dyno work. There are still some people that choose the large roll water brakes, but the cost benefit is quite in most applications if you're trying to still use water.
The other question that we got is, what is the maximum working temp of the pit?
The air-cooled Eddy absorbers do get up to like 900 degrees. As they get hotter, the magnetic field becomes weaker, and they're self-protecting from overheating to the point of damage, but they are designed to, if you're running a 38-minute test at 500-600 horsepower, they do get glowing red. So that's the operating range. They have built-in fan blades basically in the Eddies, as you can see on the screen, where they are throwing that heat out of the pit up into the room air. But it does get warmer, and that's why we need to have proper ventilation in that area to draw the heat out. We do have them in outdoor applications in pits in Georgia and Arizona, at multiple locations in Arizona, where you think they can get up to 100 and some degrees, but they don't have any exhaust hoods. They're just under a canopy to protect from the rays of the sun for the operators. The heat is being rejected up into the air. Commonly at the end of a test, you might unload and leave the rolls, Eddies, the tires and the rollers spinning for 2 minutes or so to help cool down the Eddies and get that heat rejected into the room, and thus pulled out by the exhaust hood fan.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Wayne. And everybody, thank you so much for your questions. One of the things that we like to do is to ask people, you know, what's your impression of the webcast? Has this been helpful? Has the information been helpful? And I'm going to turn it over just to Pat real quick for a closing comment. But let us know. Send us in a quick message. Was this worth your time? Did you find it valuable? What other questions you might have? We really appreciate everybody asking the questions that they did. As you can see on the screen, Pat, Wayne, and Dan are certainly available to you. Their email addresses are there. One of the things that we want you to realize is we're not just here to provide products, but certainly provide you a sound framework to make an investment, and certainly an investment in your business versus just buy a product. It's one of the reasons we wanted to cover the payback calculator. Pat?
Well, thanks, Tim. Really, I just reinforce the point that we'd love to be a business partner with you. We want to help you run a better business, and we have some products that we think can help you do that. The main purpose of this webinar is, like we said, to make it better for our customers by giving you an education as to what a chassis dyno can do for your business and your operation. Open your eyes maybe to what opportunity it could present, and then you can decide if it's something you want to move forward with. We'd be happy to help you with it, and of course, we hope and pray that you might want to work with us as a partner, at least to investigate the opportunities that chassis dyno might bring, but we respect the fact you may choose to go to somebody else. Our hope is, because we take the time to help educate you and give you something of value here and some ideas on how to run a better business, that you'll take a minute to contact one of our account managers and explore if it's right for you or not. And we really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.